Good evening, England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Welcome to Faiths United Multi-Faith Iftar, in partnership with the Faith Forum for London and Faith and Leadership. I'm Said Razawi, Director General of the Scottish Ahlul-Bayt Society, and one of those faith leaders involved in Faiths United. I'll be your host tonight. We have called this event Unity and Solidarity, given the extraordinary times that we're living through. Facing this pandemic has caused much pain, distress, and disruptions to our daily lives.
Good evening, Ramadan Mubarak to those observing fast. I am SARWAT TASNEEM, Advisory Board Member for the Near Neighbours Programme and co-hosting this evening alongside Said Ali Abbas Razawi. We are delighted to be joined by political leaders across the UK from London, Wales, Northern Ireland, Manchester and Liverpool. We are also joined this evening by Muslim key workers, community leaders, and by people of all faiths and none from all over the UK.
Now, as we come to the end of the month of Ramadan, which most probably will be finishing on Saturday night, depending on the sighting of the moon, I'd like to say that Ramadan is a month of reflection. It's a month of community. It's a month of prayer, but more so it's a month of God. And what Iftar symbolizes is community and families coming together to break their fast after a hard day's no food and no water.
Thank you, Said Ali Abbas. Now, our first speaker this evening is Andy Burnham, Mayor of Greater Manchester. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. Greetings from Greater Manchester. It's wonderful to join you all for this virtual iftar, and I'm very grateful, as are everybody in Greater Manchester, to Faiths United for bringing us together, particularly at this challenging time. Of course, this is a Ramadan that I think everybody will always remember, certainly different, and we've been thinking of you all because it's difficult, a difficult time. Of course, you can't come together in the way that everybody would like to do. But another way of looking at it is perhaps it will be remembered as one of the most powerful Ramadans, because of course this is a time when people are encouraged to think of others, put yourself in the shoes of people perhaps who are less fortunate than ourselves. And certainly we've been doing that at this time, thinking about all of the people still out there running the country, working in our shops and supermarkets, in our care homes, in our National Health Service. Everyone has been thinking about people throughout this time and sympathizing with their situation and hoping that we can build a better society coming out of this. I've certainly been inspired by what I've seen in Greater Manchester, as ever, all of the faiths coming together to support people, particularly our homeless community, people from our mosques, synagogues, churches, pulling together to support over 1,500 people who we have accommodated in safe places at this particular moment in time. And that has all been achieved by everybody pulling together, working across the faiths, working as one community. So tonight I would want to celebrate that what we are achieving in these difficult times is still quite amazing. And think about it, you know, amidst the crisis, we still said we could house everybody who's homeless. Why can't we do that in more normal times? I think we should do that in more normal times. So together tonight, we celebrate our common humanity. We do think of you all during this time. And I would just say, let's together tonight resolve to build back better, build a stronger, fairer society coming out of this. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Andy Burnham, for your inspiring words. Now, I know that you've got another virtual meeting, so we really appreciate you adjusting your diary for us this evening. Thank you so much. It's now my pleasure to introduce SHUJA LAKHANI from Faiths United Youth Network to chair our first panel to hear some inspiring stories of what people in the Muslim community have been doing ever since this pandemic broke out.
My name is SHUJA, and as was mentioned, I'm a representative from the Faith United Youth Network. We are an organisation aiming to bring together youth from all faiths and none to make a difference in our communities and beyond. Firstly, I want to introduce my panel. We have MEHREEN DATOO, who is currently working at John Radcliffe Hospital on the COVID ward, as well as working on a COVID vaccine trial at the same time. We have Shaliza Hashim, who is part of CHD Living, a care home provider, and started a scheme called Adopt a Grandparent, which connects volunteers with the elderly and vulnerable people. And finally, we have Rohana Sadiq, who has been working as a Muslim chaplain with people of all faiths in Birmingham hospitals. So I just want to start off by asking the panel one question, and that is, as all of you are doing such important jobs right now, we've seen on the news all of the challenges, especially during Ramadan. We really appreciate what you've been doing. But what has it been like working on the front line? Could you share your thoughts, your challenges, your experiences during this time? Let's start with MEHREEN, shall we?
I guess it's been very challenging. We've had to deal with large numbers of sick patients, and it's even more difficult working under the strict rules in terms of infection control, the services we have available to us. And there's been a lot of sadness dealing with so many deaths in a short space of time. But more positively, in this pandemic, there's also been quite a lot of happiness. The teamwork that we have had on our ward throughout the hospital, from everyone, not just healthcare workers, but everyone outside the hospital, providing us food, making us scrubs. It's to the people who clap on Thursday evenings. It's been a really nice gesture. And also it's been quite exciting for me. As mentioned, I am working with the University of Oxford, also on the COVID vaccine trial. So lots of mixed emotions, some good, some not so good.
Thank you, Barry. Should we go next to Rohana?
Challenges are many, and right now, especially for a lot of the Muslim staff, is how fasting would be wearing PPE, especially if they've got long shifts for, you know, a long, long time, and it can get really hot underneath all that PPE. And that's been a challenge. Working as a chaplain has been always wonderful, because especially with Islam, there is so much flexibility and there's so much common sense in it. And a lot of Muslims may not necessarily be aware of that. So it's wonderful helping staff to understand when they can break their fast, if they need to break their fast. I've found it incredibly amazing that I've hardly noticed my fasts. But then again, I think the longest I've had all my PPE on in intensive care units is probably for only 4 or 5 hours. And for me, that's been perfectly manageable. But it can be very uncomfortable. I think that's one of the challenges. The other challenges, I think, probably are the fact that a lot of people worry about what it's going to be like. And actually, it's not so bad in terms of fasting while a lot's happening around us. It's amazing where that strength comes from. But there are lots of things in Islam that makes it easy for people to be able to be flexible.
So finally, can we just end on a slightly positive note? I know you've talked about the challenges in the hospitals, but are there any sort of stories or things that you've seen, any positive experiences that can really lift morale right now, especially for everyone experiencing the virus? Should we start with MEHREEN, shall we?
So I think I described some quite positive things earlier about what's made me and other people happy during the pandemic. A bit more generally, what's been quite exciting for me, because I do work on a COVID ward, is that in the last week it's been 5 days and we have had no deaths on our ward. We have seen the reflow of all the patients, and we have 50% less COVID cases. And actually at the John Radcliffe, they are now trying to descale back their COVID efforts, and we are starting to return to some kind of, I don't know if you can call it normality, but we are definitely, you know, we feel like we're getting through the other end, which is a really nice feeling. In terms of something positive to say. So my favourite illustrator at the moment is Charlie Maxey, and I think he put some words very well. And a quote that he says is, "Everybody is a bit scared, but we are less scared together." And I think everyone just needs to remember that. We've come through this together. Fear has been a lot, and slowly, hopefully, it's improving and getting less and less.
Well, the same thing to you, and anything positive that you feel has come out of this?
There's a lot of positive things happening, and certainly here as well, it's good to see the numbers going down. Today, we only had 3 positive cases, which is really good. But it's wonderful that our total of people who've gone home having recovered from COVID is over 2,000 up to now. So that's really good news. The other thing is, I am amazed at the families that are not able to be with their loved ones right now. So we are trying to make sure that we are looking after those families, and we can take back and forwards messages from the patient if they're conscious. And I think it's just been absolutely amazing, the strength that they have had and what they've hung onto. And the wonderful thing is that for many of us who have a religion, we hang on to that, and it gives us an incredible source of strength for us. But other than that, for those who don't have a religion, they have been absolutely amazing in hanging on to every aspect of spirituality that they feel in their way and their beliefs. So that's been amazing to be able to see, and how everybody comes together for everybody. Doesn't matter which background you're from, what faith background or no faith background you're from, the humanity that has been expressed by people together. So whether it's, as Mary had mentioned earlier on, the people from the community sending wonderful gifts and feeding us and giving us lots of wonderful hand cream for our very dried up washed hands, or whether it's because there are people here who are just looking out for you all the time. Every day, wherever I go, I have people saying, "Are you looking after yourself? How are you? Are you all right?" I have my neighbours who are not of the same religion or anything, but they will ring up and they will say, "Do you know what? If you need a confidential ear, I'm here. If you want something out of the hospital, I'm here." Well, that becomes problematic in terms of patient confidentiality. And of course, we can't do anything there. But sometimes just to have a chat with somebody about anything to do with anything but not your work really, really helps.
Thank you.
And just to be able to switch off and do other things that perhaps you might not do. So I love doing my jigsaws every night.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And really briefly then, can we quickly go to Shaliza, to anything positive that you've seen or heard from this?
An interesting experience. Oh, there, can you see me now?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, we've had an interesting experience. We look after around 800 vulnerable people, both older people and young adults over the age of 18, living with a number of different conditions, as well as employing more than 600 staff who've committed their time to support those people that we care for, and really supporting the staff through this difficult time, giving them access to the appropriate PPE so that they can work safely and with confidence, whilst also trying to maintain the well-being of our residents has been a real challenge, and one that the amazing people who work with us have really risen to the challenge. We have done some really sort of innovative things in and amongst our organisation to promote well-being and try and combat isolation and loneliness. And one of those is pairing kind of virtual pen pals, if you like. So we did a digital campaign, as you mentioned, SHUJA, called Adopt a Grandparent. And we launched that in March, and that went sort of viral. It's become a bit of a worldwide movement where we have 80,000 volunteers registered from all over the world. And children as young as 1 year old and adults into their 80s who spend a little bit of time every week speaking to a vulnerable person and just providing support and companionship during this very difficult time. And I think what that has shown is that it doesn't matter where we come from, our backgrounds, our faiths, what we have, what we don't have. Everyone across the world is suffering the same fears, anxieties and worries at the moment. And the more support that we can give to each other during this difficult time, the better, really.
Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you, for your answers. It was really lovely to hear that. And I know MEHREEN and Rohana have been speaking to me beforehand. They were just in the hospital now. So I really appreciate all of your time for taking this out for us. I'm just going to hand over now to the co-chairs.
Now I'd like to introduce someone who has been instrumental in putting tonight's event together and who is extremely active in many a good cause, Chair of Faiths United, MAURICE, OSTRO.
Hello, salam alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak to everybody. It is my honor and privilege to chair this Faiths United. It's a remarkable coalition of faith leaders from across the country. And what's fantastic is the way that they've focused on sharing outside their own faith traditions, the best practice that they have discovered with people from different faiths. And most importantly, not just ideas, but getting involved in joint action. We've got leaders from all 9 faiths, and they've been organizing phone volunteering, webinars on bereavements, on prejudice, and demonstrating unity through joint statements. We've done it recently around Easter, around Passover. There's been a clapping for carers video, and then of course it's tonight. So it has been really phenomenal, a huge amount of work that's been done by people who have already a lot on their plate, showing their regard, not just for their own communities, but for others. And it is a special delight tonight to introduce, and if I may, introduce all 3 at the same time, just for speed, so that we don't have to go backwards and forwards. The 3 speakers from senior positions in the 4 nations that we have here in the United Kingdom, starting, if I may, with Lord Stephen Greenhalgh. He's Minister of State at MHCLG and the Home Office, responsible for faith communities, as well as for housing and fire and rescue services. He's got a big job. He previously worked for the Prime Minister, actually, in City Hall as a deputy mayor. He was doing then policing and crime in London. And I'm very excited to have him with us representing the national government. And then after his comments, we will cut straight through to Arlene Foster, First Minister of Northern Ireland, who sent a video message. We'll go straight to her message from Lord Greenhalgh. She's a woman of faith. Arlene was the first woman, the youngest Minister of Northern Ireland, when she assumed the role in January in 2016. And then we will turn immediately from her message to Mark Drakeford. He's the First Minister of Wales, a former probation officer, a youth justice worker, a Barnardo's project leader. He's done a lot and became First Minister as well, on top of that, in December 2018. So we've got 3 senior ministers from across the country, which is indicative of the importance of Ramadan to the people of this country and the profound gratitude that we feel towards the Muslim frontline workers. And what's especially humbling at this time is that we are united as a country in our fight against COVID. And with that, may I turn over to Lord Greenhalgh.
Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak, and I think it's Eid Mubarak next week. So thank you very much indeed, Maurice, for inviting me to join this Faiths United Virtual Iftar. It's important to me that I participated, and I really welcome the invitation. Just to give you my title, my wife calls it Minister for F&F, which is Fire and Faith. That probably rolls off the tongue a little more easily. It is an honor. I recognize that Ramadan is an extremely important time for all Muslims to renew their faith in God. And happening right now in the pandemic, this is obviously a Ramadan like no other. It's certainly been a period for my family that like no other. Unfortunately, I'm going to show you, I lost my mother last month to the virus. Thank God, my father survived, but it's hit me personally. I also suffered from COVID symptoms that laid me up, frankly, in bed for over a week, and took me several weeks to recover. It's hitting families. It's across all faith communities and those who have none. And I'm just pleased that the NHS was not overrun, and that we can carefully think about how we begin to recover and then our ability to renew our faith. And that is one of the most important challenges for government, which is how do we reopen places of worship safely? And I'm co-chairing that with Secretary of State Robert Jenrick, and the next meeting of that task force, roadmap task force, is on Wednesday. But it is a huge pleasure to listen to the young voices, and I'd like personally, upon record, my thanks to British Muslims for what you do to help the vulnerable, to help the homeless. And Mayor Burnham mentioned the amazing efforts. Nationally, we took 90% of rough sleepers off the streets. That's about 4,500 rough sleepers that are now in hotel accommodation. And there needs to be some big efforts to ensure that we can get them into long-term settled, secure accommodation going forward. But I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. Thank you to the Muslim community. Thank you to all the faith groups that I know are on the line. And together we will beat this virus.
Good evening. It is a pleasure and a privilege to speak to you all during this very special iftar. I am very glad to have the chance to join with you tonight in offering our heartfelt thanks to our doctors, nurses and carers, and to all of those who have stepped forward in the service of others at this difficult time. I particularly want to commend the work of all our faith communities who are united, as you are tonight, in their support of those who need it most. There is so much about our daily lives that has changed, but our faith communities have led the way in bringing people together for the common good. At this time of isolation and separation, you have helped people connect in new ways and to spread a spirit of hope, goodwill and neighbourliness, which is so important right now. In Northern Ireland, this has helped people keep bread on the table, supported those who are struggling, and of course, comforted those who have lost loved ones. The Northern Ireland Executive recognises the real spiritual and emotional needs of our people. And we have been pleased today to be able to allow the opening of places of worship for private prayer. Like you, I look forward to the day when our places of worship will be restored as places of congregation, music and prayer. I commend you for all that you're doing right now. As you have shown, we will get through this together. I wish you an enjoyable evening.
Croeso mawr I chi gyd o Gymru. Good evening. Welcome to you all from Wales, and Ramadan Mubarak to you all. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you at this fantastic multi-faith iftar and to have heard all the other contributors to it. By now, here in Cardiff, we would have had during the holy month of Ramadan one of our great annual celebrations, an open air iftar in front of Cardiff City Hall, a huge crowd of people, fantastic celebration. And this year is so different, and so different in so many ways. But nevertheless, our Interfaith Forum, which has been part of our landscape here throughout the years of devolution, goes on being a fundamentally important part of the way in which together we are navigating this awful experience. Whether that be in our communities or in our public services, we use that forum to bring people together, to celebrate the contributions that different communities make, to mark events that are important in the lives of us all, including Ramadan. And we build from that into the future, a future in which we will emerge from this stronger than we went into it, having demonstrated our solidarity one with another. And this evening's multi-faith iftar is absolutely part of that, a coming together in which we draw that strength, plan for our futures together, celebrate the contributions which each one of us makes. From Wales, I say to you all, Ramadan Mubarak. May reflection and peace be with you all.
Thank you so much, Faith Minister, First Minister of Northern Ireland, First Minister of Wales, and Maurice for guiding us through this segment. It's now my pleasure to introduce Josephine Davidoff from Faiths United Youth Network to chair our second panel to see what our faith leaders have to say. Over to you.
Hi, my name's Josephine. I'm representing the Faiths United Youth Network. My question for you is, what challenges have you encountered representing your different faith communities during the COVID crisis? Should we start with Mary?
Thank you. For me personally, in the Jewish community, the biggest challenge that we've faced is in relation to burial. Very early on, the coronavirus bill 27, section 27, gave the government power to cremate instead of burial, which was of great concern to both Jewish and Muslim communities. And we worked over a weekend with NASHAR and the government. We got a change in the law. And last week, a coroner in Inner London North, Mary Hassel, there had previously been a case against her because she didn't allow speedy burial, which again was a great concern for Jews and Muslims. And we've had to challenge her again for not allowing speedy release of the actual person to be buried, which has caused a huge amount of grief for the Jewish community. And I understand that a Muslim person also hadn't been able to be buried for several weeks. So that has been a big challenge throughout.
DEESHA?
Thanks, Josephine. It's really delightful to be here, and Eid Mubarak to one and all. I think for us in the Hindu community, we have quite a large elderly population, and not all of them speak English. A lot of them are quite vulnerable. So there was quite a delay in getting messages across to them about social distancing, about protecting themselves in other ways, and getting those messages translated into languages they could understand, making it kind of simpler for them to understand the messages that the government were giving out at that time. And a lot of them also live alone currently. So getting medicines to them, having enough people who were willing to look after their needs. So for example, the Indian community prefer eating food that they are accustomed to, so traditional Indian food. So getting those systems set up did prove challenging to us. And I think we've now overcome that, but we still have to keep a very sharp eye on it, I think.
Definitely. So let's go on to Sheikh ASIM. What challenges have you found in your faith community with COVID?
Assalamu alaikum to everyone, and Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you all for attending this wonderful gathering, although it has to be on Zoom. You can't smell the food coming from my kitchen, so I apologize for that. I think that DEESHA and Marie have kind of stolen my thunder really where that's concerned. Yeah, burials were a major concern for us, and there was an enormous amount of effort that was put into training up volunteers, liaising with the local authorities to ensure that those funeral rites and so forth could be performed properly. Also, given the concerns about social isolation and health, communicating government directives and guidance to people who English wasn't their first language, who wouldn't watch the BBC, for example, was something that was a real challenge as well. Specifically, I think from the Muslim perspective, I think the closure of the mosques, which have often served as central points for the conveyal of information, but also social hubs where people can come together, especially the older people can come together and have some company, has been a real blow. And we have, I think the community has really found innovative ways to ensure that some of that, especially during Ramadan, you can imagine the mosques are usually full during that month. But we tried to find innovative ways around that to ensure that some of the social and the religious functions could be replaced or could be provided, alternatives could be provided. The other thing, I suppose, was to Ramadan is a time of great generosity, and often generosity that's very local in its scope, very personal and intimate. So to ensure that we had innovative ways to maintain those traditions and customs has been a challenge, but I think one that we've met through the month as well as could have been hoped, I think.
So just leading on to Daniel, so your Christian perspective, how has your community been coping with COVID?
If I can, just I want to be slightly wider than a Christian perspective, because faith can kind of advocates for all faiths. And I think the challenge that I face now is the same at the start. And actually, it's really encompassing what you've been talking about. The challenge I feel is, how do we capture, notate, map these webs of connection which have gone beside and above and around whatever government's done, whatever has normally happened out of places of worship. There is a community response, and I think we see faith right at the forefront of that. My biggest concern is that we don't lose those things. There's not a desire to return to normal, which I think we know that normal doesn't exist in the same way. But actually how we record and make sure those webs of connection are still there. And I think faith is definitely at the forefront of those things.
So I've got one last question, and I'm looking for like a one-sentence answer from each of you. So as you know, Faith United Youth Network, we're a brand new organisation that we've launched. We're kind of like a partner charity to Faith United and Faith Forum for London. So we found from developing this group that many young people feel underrepresented in their faith communities, and they want to give their time to tackle COVID and matters that are important to them, but they're not really sure where to start. So who to start, like where to go, basically. So I wanted to know, from your different faith perspectives, how do you feel we can best engage young people to take part in social action and support those on the front line of COVID, from your different faith community perspectives? Should we start with Sheikh Asim?
I think that I think it's really great that young people want to get in. I know you want a one-line answer, don't you? Okay, let me try. I think it's really great that you want that young people want to get involved. I think you need to consider that. What I would suggest is that working within existing networks, but bringing your unique insights and your skills and your enthusiasm to breathe new life into those networks, I think would marry the best of both worlds. That's my one-line answer.
Thank you. Right, Dr. DEESHA?
I've got, as you can say, almost the same as Asim did, but I think to add to that, there's actually organisations that are already set up. So things like we have the City Hindus network. Similarly, there's a City Sikhs, and these spaces are a lot more welcoming and inviting of younger people, as opposed to maybe some of the temples might be. So joining these organisations, for example, your youth group is another prime example, where you can really shape what happens and take things forward on your own terms. And that in itself is very empowering as well.
Thank you. Mary?
I think that young people have got a tremendous amount to offer, and this has actually become more prevalent in the corona crisis, because with young people, teaching elderly relatives and friends how to use Zoom to connect with people, doing food shops to support those isolating, and finding really creative, innovative ways to use social media, that really has even been used to raise money. And we can see that Jewish communities have really responded in a lot of stronger way and with passion, and much more diverse, with the contribution from young people that I think are now taking actual leadership roles in the community. And we're seeing Jewish youth movements running activities for other young people to make sure they're having this strong social connection. Even young Jewish musicians are doing live stream performances into Jewish care homes. And I think this is all amazing, and it's shown a fantastic spirit of unity. And I think young people have got so much to offer, and we've actually seen this in action, and then hats off to them. It's an incredible contribution.
Thank you. I would say that young people have a kind of fresh element in terms of their approach to things, and I think the fact that we're so skilled in terms of social media and online networking is a really great strength in terms of COVID, in terms of like the COVID response. So it's definitely something that we could harness in terms of ensuring that the message gets out there, in terms of volunteering opportunities, in terms of connecting to isolated individuals. So yeah. And lastly, Daniel.
Well, I'm really into seeing champions released. and a champion is a person with a solution. So if I wanted to help young people get involved, I'd say come with a solution. And if I was to quote the wartime president in the States, I don't care what you do, just do something. And I think that's part of the thing. It's not always about permission. It's not always about structures. It's about getting on and getting cracking.
Sure. Having like a confident approach at just doing what you can, really. Great. Well, I just want to thank you so much to our panelists, Sheikh Dr. ASIM Yusuf, Mary van der Zil, President of Board of Deputies, Daniel Singleton, National Executive Director of Faith Action, and Dr. DEESHA CHADHA from the Hindu Forum for Britain. Thank you so much.
I'd now like to introduce our next two speakers, Mayor of Liverpool, Steve Rotherham, followed by Dr. Debbie Weeks-Bernard, Deputy Mayor of London, who is responsible for social integration, social mobility and community engagement.
My name's Steve Rotherham. I'm the Metro Mayor of the Liverpool City region, and on behalf of the people of our city region, I hope that Ramadan is filled with joy and happiness for all those people who are celebrating it, and that we find strength and courage to triumph over the adversity of the last few months and the months ahead, because particularly now, I think Ramadan has been a uniquely difficult period as we face being distanced from family, friends and loved ones. But I take strength from us all eventually coming together, and certainly coming together this evening. And in the city of Liverpool, we're famous for our diversity and for coming together. So we're honoured to have the first mosque in the UK, actually, which is founded by Abdullah Quilliam in 1887. And Abdullah was a convert to Islam, as people will know, and is credited with spreading the faith around England. And I've visited the mosque on a number of occasions, and it's a very special place. In more recent years, it's welcomed a rather prestigious person as a regular worshipper, a man who's more popular with the red half of Merseyside than, it has to be said, the blue half. And I am a Liverpool Football Club supporter, but that person is no other than Mohamed Salah, who really has brought more than his football genius to the city region. And he's known to football fans throughout the world, of course, but also he's known for his dignity, commitment, and bringing people of all faiths and none together. And this is something that I know that this event aims to do tonight for us all. So Ramadan may be a very difficult period this year, but I think it's more important now than ever to find strength in our communities as we come together to tackle this pandemic and all of the difficulties that everybody will face. So I'd like to wish you all Ramadan Mubarak, and hopefully next time we'll see each other face to face. Thank you.
And so I would just like to add to Steve's comment and wish you all Ramadan Mubarak, and I'd like to thank Faith United for inviting me to speak this evening. I've been really humbled to be in the presence of so many esteemed speakers, and I've really enjoyed listening to all of the contributions this evening. And on behalf of myself and the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, we really would like to wish you all the very best for Ramadan. We know there are only 10 days left, but we hope that you have had a really peaceful and blessed month. I'd like to maybe just reflect on two things. The first is that I have been really humbled to hear so much about the contributions that have been made from many of the frontline workers who spoke a bit earlier on in the event today. And I would like to just say a special shout out to Rahana Sadiq. She may not remember me, but I was a very young researcher, and I interviewed her for a book that I wrote, which was detailing the Asian contribution to the NHS. And Rahana was one of my invitees, and she featured in the book, and it's lovely to hear that she is as sparkling now as she was back then. So I would like to just say hello to Rahana, but also to thank her and to thank Shaliza and MEHREEN for all that they do as frontline workers, supporting those in need in this clear crisis, and including them on this call allows us, I suppose, to really reflect on why it is that we are holding an iftar on Zoom rather than having the opportunity to all be together. And so I'd like to just say that there are so many people of faith and of no faith, and from a range of different backgrounds, who do so much to support some of our most vulnerable communities. One of the things that has been clear for us in London is how many people from minority ethnic backgrounds, from faith backgrounds, are on the front line, who are working as health and social care workers, but also as bus drivers, also as porters, as cleaners. And I think if there is one thing that this pandemic has taught us, is that there are lots and lots of people of faith who have been contributing to their communities in a range of different ways, but are also very heavily represented in those frontline roles, often doing very thankless tasks. And whilst we clap every Thursday for our carers, I think one of the things that this pandemic has taught us is that there are people who have been doing this amazing work for so long, often not receiving the recognition and the praise that they should. And so I hope that coming out of this pandemic, we will continue to thank those frontline workers of faith and of none who have done so much to support our most vulnerable, to support the most needy. Final thing to say is that we will always support communities of faith. We have thousands of faith and belief organisations in London. We consider those faith and belief organisations to be doing such important work, from providing food through food banks, through community kitchens, to all of the befriending work that they do, supporting people who are feeling isolated. And faith and belief organisations have done that before. They will do it again. And I would like to just extend my very best of thanks to all of you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor of London and the Mayor of Liverpool. I know that time is very short. I'm going to quickly move on to the next segment, which is just under a year ago, we saw the World Cup final, brought together people from different communities, similar to how this crisis has brought people from different communities together. So I'm delighted now that we have a message from the World Cup final member, ADIL Rashid.
Salam everyone, Faith United and Ramadan Mubarak. Just under a year ago, I played for England, the winning team of the World Cup. You know, it was a great time, a moment for the nation. The COVID-19 crisis brought lots of sadness, but it has also showed the unity of humanity through dedication of key workers and millions of acts of kindness. You know, we have come together to support each other at this crucial time. You know, Ramazan as well this year has been different. I know that's true. You know, a lot of people of different faiths who haven't been able to attend, you know, their places of worship. You know, we should also be playing cricket by now, but the season has been delayed further. But let's stick together, and one day we'll be able to get back to our places of worship and be playing cricket.
Compassionate and uplifting message from ADIL Rashid. Now it's almost time for iftar here in London. It's obviously later in Manchester, Liverpool, Cardiff and Belfast. It's now my pleasure to introduce Imam QARI Azam, Chair of the Mosques and Imams National Advisory Board, to share a few words and lead the call to prayer.
Thank you, Sarah. I would like to begin by thanking Faith United, Faith Forum for London, Faith United, Youth Network, and Faith in Leadership for bringing us all together. This Ramadan is like no other. We have not been able to hold night prayers in our mosque or hold iftar events, but it has been heartening to see communities coming together and sharing best practices. Passover, Easter, Vaisakhi, all of the holy days have had to be marked by people coming together very differently. We all had to reconfigure the concept of community and transform it into virtual community. So although extremely challenging, the spirit of togetherness has been our strength. We pray to the most merciful Lord to grant us peace, to heal our souls, and comfort us in this time of pain, fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. We pray that those who have departed this world due to COVID-19 may they receive God's infinite mercy. And those who have been affected or infected by it, may Lord of the heavens and the earth sustain bodies and spirits and grant them relief from this infection. Finally, I'd like to pray that our political leadership is granted the wisdom and resilience to lead us through this extremely difficult time safely and amicably as they have been doing so. Traditionally, we pray to Lord of the heavens and the earth at the time of breaking the fast, and now it's time to make a call for prayer. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله